person talking about love, thine brother is the preacher. And it seems nobody's interested in learning but the teacher.
Hey Chalk Talkers, welcome to another episode of Chalk Talk. Today we finally got most of the crew back, even though it's been a couple weeks without the three of us here. And today we are going to be talking about...
hypertrophy.
There we go, that way I don't mess up the word like I had 8 other times this morning.
Hypertrophy. Surprised to give to kids with ADD.
Let's say it one more time so I don't mess it up.
Hypertrophy.
Hippie trophy.
Hippie trophy.
Alright, so we're talking about hippos and their trophies today. First though, we got to talk about a few things that were going on in weightlifting world. Let's see, we had a squat that we were talking about. Somebody got dinged on something they shouldn't have. Was that what I was hearing?
Yeah, Jesse Norris hit a, was it 738?
Yeah, something in the 7s.
738-ish. Twice got red lighted for depth at, was that Raw Nationals this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
USAPL. So they dinged him, he came back at it, didn't get it either time.
The head judge actually said skip leg day after he missed it the second time.
I was hearing that he got below parallel, so shouldn't have been dinged.
It looked noticeably below parallel,
The
yeah.
videos it's tough to tell because, you could perform one lift and we could film it from 5 or 6 different angles and have 5 or 6 different perceptions of the video or of the lift. And I think that's what happened in this case. The thing to keep in mind is somebody like him, Jesse really typically never has a depth issue. So it isn't like, maybe he's borderline or he tries to squat a little high. He buries all of his squats, and so typically it isn't an issue. Looking at it then looking at the video that he posted, to me it looked good. Again, I'm not sitting in the judge's seat. We're not actually watching what they saw. But if it was like an iffy, like it kind of was but kind of wasn't, I would have leaned towards it was a good lift.
Sure. It kind of sounds like this might be an example of that maybe videos of these should be tested, not tested, but reviewed by a panel. If you're getting a world record and it's a big thing, yeah, that's got to suck to, be able to look at videos and have everyone say, yeah, this is probably right, And I know that happens in other sports too where, things happen, refs, that's part of the game, it's part of it. But is this, maybe making an example that there should be a team of reviewers for these?
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be people reviewing it, and the very worst case scenario is just recording the lifts and then give the judges an opportunity to go back and look at it again, because they are making a split-second decision, and they're not like basketball referees or football referees, right, where they're out running around, they're very alert because a lot of stuff is going on, right? They're sitting in a chair, it's typically pretty warm, and here comes another guy to squat, and you're just sitting there. So they're going to make mistakes just because, you sit in a chair for 8-10 hours. I mean, you're going to make a mistake and have to make the split-second decision. So I think something like that should have been hey, let's relook at this. Let's pull it up and just take a look at it. Or say, hey, we're going to red light it now at the end of the competition. These are the lifts that we're going to look at, and we're going to see, based on whatever.
Yeah. Sure. Maybe do something like, because, in the NFL you can throw your red flag only so many times, but maybe, give the lifter a chance to say, hey, I would like this one reviewed at the end of the competition. And, they only get to choose one that, they can say, I would like this, but as a way to, and I guess maybe you'd get a lot of people doing that, and that could become really annoying, but...
Yeah, I think the problem is you can't do it at the time, right? And that could screw up the lifter. You can't say we're going to stop everything to review this video.
Right.
So that could screw up, if it was like a first attempt or even a second attempt, that could screw up the rest of the meet for that person. However, by putting the brakes on and saying we're going to review this, so now this next lifter's got a 10-minute window of just sitting there, you can't have that. So really the only fix is to do it at the end, or having an additional judge sitting there doing it while the competition is still going.
Strictly for video reviews.
Yeah. Which, that just kind of opens up, and I see why they maybe don't do that, because that opens up a whole nother world of complications, because, if people knew they had the option to bitch about their lift, then everybody and their mother is going to bitch about their lift. Like, I felt like that was good. No. And we don't have time. The meets are hard enough to run efficiently. And if you take at an event like Raw Nationals, where there was, I think, 11 or 1,200 lifters there, things would just never get completed.
What if, now I'm just, again, spitballing more ideas. What if it's one of those where you could do something where you have to get one good one, right? Because there's three lights to go. You got to get at least one good one.
We need
to be reviewed. No, I'm saying to be reviewed, you got to get one good one. If you got 3 red, that's it. But if one person was like, hey, maybe, all right, that one could be reviewed if you want to, if you want to argue it.
That makes sense. That'd be good.
That's the interesting thing is if I am correct, it was a side judge that gave him the white light. Which, if it's a depth issue, the 2 side judges should have been red. The front judge should have been a white light.
Sure.
And I might be wrong. I looked at it earlier in the week, so I really put much thought into it. But if I remember correctly, I remember it was the far left light that was white. So
interesting.
And he's been battling with Amit, right?
Yeah.
Trying to go for the world record.
Yeah, they're kind of going back and forth. They actually had a little Facebook
spout thing.
Spout thing. It's like, I mean, I guess I'm not one to talk, but I just go and just compete. Just throw your numbers out there and don't worry about what other people are doing.
I think some of the rivalry is good on a personal standpoint for me. If I playing against you on something, I'm going to work harder. So that part's good, but then I don't get why people think Facebook is the spot to air their grievances. From everything, from people who are, dealing with relationship issues, work issues, or you want to, shit talk some other athlete.
Yeah.
Why has Facebook become that now?
Because it's the instant gratification.
Instant gratification, it's the place where people are actually paying attention.
Sure.
And it's the only place where
because that's a good
conversation. There's no other public discourse about powerlifting. Nobody really cares.
I bash Facebook. I still check mine 10, 12 times a day.
Here's the thing is, and you'll see this if you really pay attention to everybody on Facebook, but if you post something that's controversial, right? None of your friends, unless they're a shit stirrer, right? You might get that one. But 99% of your friends are going to agree with you, right? Because it would be a confrontation if they didn't. And so that's what ends up happening is that everybody just agrees with them, and then you go look at another person's thing that might be part of the controversy, and everybody agrees with him, and then it's like, nobody's really maybe saying the truth or setting a person straight.
Right.
I even heard that the original comment from Jesse was, I don't know, taken out of context or whatever, was like screenshot and retyped, and the thing that was actually being passed around wasn't even directly from his Facebook, or I don't know. I don't really care that much.
Right.
Well, Powerlifting Watch just had a thing posted that Jeremy Hornstra broke the all-time record. So, I I things aren't.
Which didn't happen, right?
No,
I didn't think so.
It was like a Wednesday.
Yeah, I saw. I was like, how is this? I think I saw from that one kid from Washington who's always posting all the time and everything.
Hunter?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes, I get more notifications from him than I do probably everyone else combined.
He just got into a bitching session on one of the forums about somebody making fun of him. He said he was a lion or a sheep, or he was a lion, sheep, or a dog or something, and
his opinions didn't count.
Yeah, and then people are like, who gives a fuck? Just go lift. Like, don't set a 7-minute video telling people you don't care what they think about you because you're a lion or a sheep. I don't remember which one it is.
That's why I took 2 hours to film it to make a 7-minute video, 3.5 hours to edit it if you have slow internet in Bankadink, Washington.
I think the kid's trying to make a name for himself. I think he's doing a good job. I think he just has to be less butthurt about what people say to him. I would challenge anybody to look at my Instagram account or Facebook account for an entire day and not get frustrated. I get so much stupid shit. I had these guys light me up on Instagram last night. There's like 50 fucking comments on one picture making fun of the way I bench. And these dudes are like 132 pounds. And it's like, whatever. I'm going to leave them up there so somebody else can chuckle at it, but don't worry about what everybody else says.
That's what I find interesting. It's the Facebook is the instant gratification. Everyone's posting on that. But you have to understand, with instant gratification comes instant insults. It's a give and take. It's a risk that you take in posting something, is that somebody's going to be offended or somebody's going to say something. You gotta just
with everybody being able to hide behind their phones and their computers, everybody's gonna find more reasons to be butthurt about things and be like, oh, I'm so pissed off. You wouldn't be pissed off if you were standing in the room with the guy. Oh, fuck this
Somebody
guy.
found that out when I walked into the gym while they're training. That didn't go so well for them. It's pretty easy to talk shit on your phone.
Yeah, well, there's a YouTube video that shows a guy who was talking all this smack to a boxer, professional boxer. Kept calling him the N-word, and as a little white kid. So,
What word?
The N-word.
Oh.
Yeah. And so they invited the kid down to the gym, and I don't know quite what happened, but yeah, if he knew what was going to happen, and they made him box the guy. And he got lit up. I mean, he's running around the room trying to be protected, and he's just getting drilled left and right. And I mean, it was like, hey, so that stuff you say on the internet, say it again. Say it. I'm right here. Oh man, it's a great video to watch. Wow. Get beat down.
Check that out.
World star. A couple of other sports news. Number one, I want to talk about in Louisville. They're having some controversy with their college basketball.
Louisville's got problems just because they're in Louisville.
Well, yeah, that's their own personal issue. They chose to be there. That's their dumb fault. But in Louisville, they are saying that they had the recruiter for their college basketball team was paying for strippers to come to the recruiting parties.
So the Kardashians were there.
Right, all 5 of them, or 12 of them, or however many there are now, to come in, and now they were given money to dance, but they were also given money to go into the back room and really do some hard recruiting.
What do you mean by hard recruiting?
You know, what happens in the back room is supposed to
Is there any videos
stay
of this?
in the back room. No, but what I find interesting is, I thought the whole point of getting a prostitute was it's so she can leave and then not say anything. That was the whole, but Heidi Fleiss comes out, she was the first one I think that wrote the book that started throwing out people's names. Women started finding out they could make a ton of money off of this stuff. And so now that's what happened. One of the strippers wrote a book. That book came out, made ESPN do follow-ups and all this, and they're finding out
It's
that
nice that she could write a book.
I think Jose Canseco started this.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I think this chick probably just finally did the math. She's like, I can blow this guy for $50, or I can sit here and write a book and make more money.
Mm-hmm. And you know, she didn't even write. She sat there and just spoke while somebody,
Right.
one of her friends was
It'd be
like,
a color
I'm jumping
channel.
on this.
Talking to Siri.
They were writing it down. So the talk is that the recruiter, Adam McGee, is, you know, he's denying everything. He's denying it. There's too many reports. Ex-players and recruiters have come out and said, oh yeah, no, I had a stripper go take me into the back room during one of our recruiting parties. It was great. So now it falls on you. Who do you blame in some of this situation? Do you look at Rick Pitino, the head coach who hired the recruiter? Do you look at the school superintendents who hired Rick Pitino? Do you put any blame on the kids?
Let's take a step back, and let's say now that you have a kid, and they go to college, and that happens to them. It's a completely different outlook.
Yeah.
It's a completely different outlook. And the deal is it's the whole organization. Everybody knew that was going on. Mm-hmm. And it's happening in other organizations. It just hasn't come out yet, right? It will.
Right.
But everybody involved is the problem, right? Because all these kids, they're luring these 17, 18-year-old kids to come into college by what? By strippers or prostitutes, whatever. The coach knows it. The athletic director knows it. The recruiting director knows it. All the other players on the team know it. I mean, but if you take a step back and you look at it like if it was yours, if that was your kid going there, you'd be hot pissed.
Well, you know what's funny though? This may sound really bad. Maybe it's because I don't have a boy that I won't think this. If I had a boy and that happened,
I don't know, man. It's not.
Hey, hopefully you're wrapped up. Don't be dumb. Now, because I have a daughter, so you know. So that's a good way to look at it, though. I actually never stepped back and looked at it from a different angle.
From that, like, even I have a boy, and it's still, like, I would be hot pissed if they, you know, changed his mind or his decision based on getting laid.
A girl.
Yeah, like, that would really bother me.
Oh, wow, yeah, because that's the whole future, too. I guess I forgot about the whole college aspect.
That's his future.
Education.
So they lure him in because they know that's what every 17 and 18-year-old boy wants. So that's how they lure him in, and it's like, man, that would suck.
Yeah.
That would suck.
That'll be interesting. I find it funny, they're talking a lot now, like, oh, how are we going to fix college sports? And, you know, now that this epidemic is happening. When did Blue Chips come out? That movie came out in the early 90s.
93 or 4?
Yeah. So, obviously, it's not a new thing. you know, Nick Nolte already taught us all about this before. Why are we surprised that these continue to go on? And there's been no steps taken to stop it. You know, everything's changing to now. Oh, now it's an issue, and now we need to talk about.
Yeah, but that's how the country responds to everything. Like, not to go down the wrong direction, but like it's the same thing every time we have a shooting. I was just talking about this with some clients and stuff a couple weeks ago, just because of what happened here in town, and everybody's all jumping up, and you're like, oh, this is getting out of control, and this is why we need more gun control, and it's because we've had an outbreak of shootings and all this. And I was like, I hear what you're saying, but people have been getting shot for a long time. Right. I was like, and it sounds insensitive. This is no means to minimize what happened to the families, but the only time that we seem to have an outbreak or care and send out thoughts and prayers and flowers is when a school full of white kids get shot, not playing the race card. But there's people that are getting gunned down with gang violence. There's people dying from drinking and driving. There's people dying in neighborhoods all across the country in numbers of 14 and more, every single day. And nobody seems to care about it until, these major political, situations pop up. And it's the same kind of thing. It's now we have an outbreak of kids getting, taken to school by hookers, when this is not the first time that people have been bribed to get into college sports because there's money involved. So that's what I think is kind of the missing part of the argument, is nobody really, they turn their eyes until they can't anymore, and then they pretend like they're all surprised.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, what they say, history, we learn history so we don't repeat it. Yet if you go back through our history books, we just keep doing a big old loop on all this stuff. What's the point in going to a history class if I'm going to experience what happened then in about 10 years, so I'm just going to wait. Yeah. Forget that education stuff. Yeah. I know we talked a little long on that, so we're going to jump into our topic a little bit. And Jaron, this is what I'm going to...
Hypertrophy?
Hippie hypnotherapy. Of hippie trophies.
Talking about hypnotherapy today.
Now, Jaron, I'm going to let you explain this only because this is one, your wheelhouse, and two, I can't explain it anywhere near as good as you can on that one. So what is it that we're going to be talking about?
Getting jacked.
Well, I can see that.
If you're in Louisville, it's jacked off.
Does this mean I can play sports now?
No.
We're going to talk about building muscle. Building muscle size. Hypertrophy.
Hypertrophy.
Muscle growth. That's what it means. Now you know.
Now I got it. Add that one to the dictionary.
Yeah.
So we're basically, we're going to compare size versus strength, really, would be maybe the thought on that.
Well, we're going to spend some time talking about how to actually grow muscle, some of the different processes by which you do grow muscle, and kind of the difference between training for size versus training for strength. Because I think even with as much access to information as we have, people still kind of mix these things up a little bit, and there's a lot of bad information about it.
I'll be honest with you, I think that especially when you're talking about this specifically, I tried to do some research online. When this is going to be our topic, I don't know what I'm talking about. Bam, let's get to Google.
Hypnotherapy.
Let's figure this out. Yeah, they don't tell you how to say the word. No, it's nowhere near as clear cut. I got lost to the point of I got frustrated, had to step away from it and come back to it another time, just because everybody and their mother has written something about it,
and it's all different.
And to figure out who's reliable, who's credible on some of that stuff. But then, to be honest, like some of it is science, so there shouldn't be credibility with part of it's science. That was a thing that I really struggled with on a lot of it too. Was there's so many things out there, so many people who put PhD behind their name that I don't really believe.
The interesting thing too, and it's probably a good topic for another episode, is some of these people that write articles for bigger websites that maybe pop up like this. Sometimes they're not super bright.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're pushed to publish some sort of document, and they sit down 15 minutes. Oh, here's something that'll do. So really, I mean, you got to really look into this, because there's a lot more to it than just do some extra reps.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, as with kind of everything, pretty much all things work, and that's what we'll end up finding by the time we talk about all of this. Pretty much everything works if you're consistent and you work hard at it. There are some things that are going to be more efficient, there are some things that are going to be less efficient, but what gets really difficult for the consumer, for the average person who's trying to go out and learn about how to put on size or how to build strength, is everybody's trying to pretend like everything is completely at odds with each other, and that there's this, one secret way. It's the same ad that you see on Facebook, right? We've unlocked the secret hidden muscle.
Learn how Mark Wahlberg gets six-pack abs in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
I've clicked on that before. Looks like a scam.
It was. I ordered it.
It's a picture of him back in Boogie Nights.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just so much information out there that it's really hard to sift through it all and figure out what's going to work for you and where to start. And most people don't stay consistent with it anyways, so it really doesn't matter. But that's kind of what we want to talk about today.
All right. So then,
maybe we'll just steer into the people that say they don't want to get too big.
That sounds like a good place to start.
I think so. As an example, I think there's a lot of different people that say that, right? Like, I think a lot of women say that they don't want to get too big because they see some super jacked, bodybuilder who's packed on, she's, 180 pounds but at 4% body fat.
Yeah.
And then you see guys who say, I just want to tone up. I just want to get shredded. I want to get cut. I don't want to get too big. And it's like, what's wrong with getting too big? Like, what would be too big? Like, looking like Eric Lillybridge? He's huge. Right. You're not going to go from 140 pounds to 300 pounds. Like, that ain't going to happen.
Right.
So let's talk about, really what that range is, because you can't get too big. I mean, I don't know. That's my opinion, I guess.
Yeah.
I have a coworker who says that guy goes to the gym every day, works hard, eats right, and does these things. And I've been bugging him, like, hey, first of all, when we first started doing this, hey, you gotta check this out. He watches the Hodge twins all the time and thinks those guys are hilarious. And I was like, hey, check us out. This would be good. And like, hey, you should come. I tried to get him to come down here one of these times. And oh, dude, I'm not about getting big though. I just want, just look good. And he does his little hula thing. And it's like, he's bigger than I am already, like arm wise and fit wise.
Yeah.
But that was my question. It's like, what do you mean too big?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, obviously, you're not going to grow. He's not going to just bounce into the Hodge twins in 2 weeks of, trying something different.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from people highly underestimate how much work it takes to put on size. Like, I've always been a larger, boned person. I've not been the size that I am now, but I was up over 200 pounds, by the time I was 14. Mm-hmm. I was a chubby 200 pounds, but that's not really been a whole lot of work for me. And when I first got into bodybuilding and I cut from a fat 250 and I competed at 176 as a middleweight, and then I spent the rest of the then until now putting the size back on, this whole process has taken me 12, 13, 14 years. I was like, so...
Are you too big now?
Oh, I'm way too big. I can't even barely function.
Can't fit through the door.
Can't do anything.
It's funny, I get that all the time. I talk to people about training styles, not specifically powerlifting, but the first assumption is when they look at me, all I'm going to do is just try to get people too big.
That's the same thing I get too. I get people like, well, I don't want to end up looking like you. And I was like, well, thanks. I don't want my face to look like yours.
Right.
Appreciate it.
So I wonder, part of it maybe comes with how growing up in some of it too. For me, I look at there can't be too big, but I'm also used to being next to you, who's been, always bigger than I am, and then your friends are that big, and, me, you guys, I'm around people who are always bigger than me, so too big isn't really possible to me. Too big is Patrice O'Neal or something, just large and fat, not muscular, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we should ask is the next time somebody says, hey, I don't want to get too big, just ask them, okay, so give me a body weight, what's too big?
Right.
Yeah.
And that would be the clear-cut answer, because I guarantee they'd all say 280, 290, and they're, $150.
Perfect. We'll stop.
You will never get there.
Right.
This is what I tell people. I was like, you don't understand how long this takes. Yeah, okay, so we take the 176, right, all those years ago, 250 now, so let's call this 70 pounds, right? Divide that up over 14 years. So you're saying at an average rate of 2 to 5 pounds per year, we can't pump the brakes somewhere in the next decade. Let's say oh, it's getting close, guys. I'm getting real close to being huge. It's okay, we'll stop the brake. We'll slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
Too much fist pumping.
Something like that. Jeez.
Do you guys notice with your training, is it more men, women? I feel like women would be ones that don't want to get big, but they want to get stronger. just because of, you guys talked about it in the last episode with Rebecca about, the way the media kind of portrays it and the way people look at women lifters. But do you find those people, do you have women that are asking you that, get me stronger, don't get me bigger?
Yeah, I mean, I have, when it comes down to it, most everybody still has some kind of aesthetic goal, even if they want to train for strength. Nobody wants to look like a sack of shit.
Sure.
And I have a lot of female clients here. We're probably 50-50 right now. It used to be more. It used to be more like 80% female because guys are stubborn and think they know everything. Mm-hmm. But at some aspect, they still want to look good. Right. And be strong, and all of that is great. And it's definitely possible because as a woman, you're not going to put on copious amounts of muscle in a short or even a very long period of time. It's just not going to happen. And so I do still have, a few who they're like, well, I just want to make sure, like, I'm not trying to get, and I was like, we're okay. You can get stronger without putting on size. I was like, you have to eat for this. I was like, I didn't end up one day, like I went to bed and I accidentally did 2 extra reps on a heavy set of something, and then I woke up and was like, what the fuck, I'm all huge now.
My shirts don't fit.
Damn it. It took years of like force feeding. Like I would have days where I would go home and I'd still have 2 more meals left and I'd be full and sick to my stomach and I'd have to still finish. I'm like, you need to have the fuel to be able to grow. We can train for strength and build strength at whatever body weight you're at. If anything, usually training for strength is going to build up your metabolism. It's going to, balance out hormones and all of those other things. You're probably actually going to lose some weight or drop body fat. And your pound of muscle and a pound of fat, pound of muscle is smaller. Mm-hmm. So even if you stayed exactly the same weight, we can switch your composition by training for strength or training for building size, and you're going to shrink physically as a person. And I think a lot of that's just because there's this really off-balance relationship between strength and what that means, and size or building muscle and what that actually means, and scale weight and what that actually means. Because you can build muscle and lose weight, you can build strength and add no muscle. You can add strength and lose weight to some degree for a while. Sure. Right? You're going to hit a point if you do it for a long enough period of time where you become efficient enough and proficient enough at the different lifts to where, yes, now the thing that you need to do is you need to put on some muscle. That's fine. And for the people that want to grow, we just fast forward that portion of it and we add more volume and we add things to the training and we add food to facilitate actually getting bigger. But in the absence of those other pieces being there, you're not just going to get big by nature of having lifted weights a couple of times a week.
Mm-hmm. Through my little bit of research and as we were going along here talking with you guys, there's, the 2 different kinds of hypertrophy. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
No more hippie trophy. But they kind of differentiate. I mean, in the powerlifting world, it would be the difference between maybe bodybuilding and then strongman or powerlifting in general. There's the sarcoplasmic. Yeah,
nailed
Learning words. Metabolic stress. Jaren, can you explain that a little bit since you're probably the most knowledgeable on the MD side of it?
I have an MD now.
Well,
take that, internet.
I said MD side of it.
So now I'm going to start prefacing everything I say with studies have shown in my research work. There's different kinds of hypertrophy or growing muscle. You've got the sarcoplasmic, which is more the traditional bodybuilder pump type work where you're filling the muscle up and you're stretching it essentially and causing metabolic stress to the muscle tissue itself.
When you say metabolic stress, break that down for a dumber word. I need a smaller word to explain that.
Damage.
Yeah, damage.
Okay. Kind of like inflating damage.
Right.
And then you've got your myofibrillar. It's fibrillar, not fibular.
Okay.
Which is more like mechanical load. So lots of load on your whole body. So that's going to be your heavier, low rep training.
Low rep, heavyweight. Okay.
Which is causing actual tearing, small micro tears to the tissue. Each of these has a different hormonal response in the body, and each of them is a different avenue that you can put on muscle through. But it's not necessarily as cut and dry. They're starting to find now, because traditionally it was, if you're a bodybuilder, you're doing mostly pump work and it's all sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. If you're a power lifter, you're doing heavy, high weight, low rep work. That's more, you're going to be your mechanical load. That's going to be your myofibrillar hypertrophy. It used to be said that like, oh, if you want density, then you train heavy, or if you want to do shape building, then you do, you know, the higher rep sarcoplasmic stuff.
That's what I remember learning in high school. Like when I took weightlifting in high school, it was, you know, because I was an offensive lineman for football my first year, everything was heavy weight, low reps. And then when I quit football, went to swimming and then go to a baseball season, everything changed to no, low weight, high rep. Two completely different things that we were working on. And that was what we were taught. You do high rep to get definition. You do low rep to get size. Well,
that's kind of what I learned originally too, and I did spend the first half of my training life doing bodybuilding type training, and that's we really want to bring out the detail in the muscle. So you're going to change your foot 13 degrees to the left, put the pressure on your big toe instead of your heel, and there is some merit to that. I think there's validity in some of the tradition and the bro science that people have passed down. And there's validity in the actual science. You read through studies, they say, yeah, you can't necessarily change the shape of muscle because the muscle is going to contract and it has one job. Tell that to somebody who's been coaching bodybuilders for 20 years, that if you don't do it a specific way, you can't get things to grow differently. So I think there is some validity to it, but there's a balance between doing the two types, and no one that's reading things on the internet is specialized enough to really have to worry about all of those things.
Sure.
What do you think? I've been talking a lot.
I concur. Oh, yeah.
No, I was going to say, I'm loving this only because, again, the internet, this couple minutes here has shown me more in the hour to 2 hours I spent on the internet clicking through different things, only because of you read one article and it's completely different about this, or it's completely different about that, and then, I had my old knowledge that I had learned from back then that I was still trying to base some of it off of. But it is hard to find some kind of cut and dry science on a lot of it. And do you think that has to do with, is the metabolic stress that's put on my body, doing something, is it the same for people to people? Or is that something that kind of varies as we go, as each individual, then that varies as well? What
they're starting to find now is that, we've known this for a while, is everybody's got different ratios of the different kinds of fiber types. You've got your fast twitch muscle fiber types, you've got your slower twitch muscle fiber types. You've got people that are good at explosive sports, and you've got people that are more well suited for endurance work. That's not to say that you can't get at least decent at both. It's not to say even they're finding that you might be able to switch your natural fiber type by training. So nature versus nurture. But we don't have a way of saying, okay, well, this is going to be my sarcoplasmic hypertrophy work, and this is going to be my myofibrillar day, maybe. But at this point, there's really not a whole lot of merit in trying to break it down that much.
Sure.
If anything, know that you can respond to both kinds of hypertrophy, and if your goal is to put on size, then you should train both ways. And as we're starting to see, an even ground happen between bodybuilding and powerlifting and whatever, just general strength training and lifting is getting kind of more intelligent now. It's kind of getting stupid too, but it's getting a little bit more intelligent to where people aren't necessarily at odds with each other, and they're starting to see the value in doing lots of different kinds of training. If you look at a lot of the successful raw powerlifters, and this is maybe where these things are starting to come together now, they are doing their heavy powerlifting work. They're working fives and triples and doubles and singles to compete in powerlifting. That's their sport-specific training. Their assistance work is pretty much all bodybuilding. If you are picking movements to address weak points in a lift and you want to put on muscle there, you're going to probably be working anywhere from 6 reps on up to 20 reps,
sure,
depending on what the muscle group is and how big of a priority it is. And you're going to be doing multiple sets of it, and you're going to be adding volume and adding workload. That looks pretty similar to bodybuilding routine, right? If you need to strengthen your back after your main deadlift work, you're probably going to do rows. You're going to do chest supported rows. You're going to do dumbbell rows. You're going to do pull ups or pull downs, things that you would see in a normal bodybuilding routine. But it's not as simple as I want to get strong, so I'm going to do 5 sets of 5, and I want to get big, so I'm going to do 4 sets of 10. It's not that cut and dry. And for the purpose of putting on size, those two things are going to be kind of even because the biggest driver in muscle size is going to be your overall workload, your volume. So if you have, let's say, arguably like 50 reps of a given exercise that we need to do, or just call it 25, make it simple, right? Sure. We need 25 to 30 reps of a given exercise to get adequate stimulus from that movement. We can do that with 5 sets of 5, right? That's 25 reps. Mm-hmm. We can do that with 8 sets of 3. That's 24 reps. We can do that with 3 sets of 8. Still 24 reps. Whatever, every other number combination, right? 10 sets of 2 is 20 or something like that. The volume is still the same, but within each of those different rep ranges, we can accomplish different things, right? If you are running short on time, 3 sets of 8 to 10 is not going to take you very long. 10 sets of 3 with heavier weight will take you significantly longer, but you can train at a heavier weight because you're using triples, right? So you can steer that same amount of volume towards more of a strength goal versus more of a size goal, and still get the benefit of both.
Sure.
So there's just a lot more other variables involved than just I'm trying to get big or I'm trying to get strong.
So now, Adrian, for somebody who, you skip the leg day, you just do the bench. I remember when one of the first times you took me to a gym back when I was in high school, just young. But that was some of the stuff that we would do was when we were doing our bench. I always remember, when I first started, I was doing sets of 10, but as I got kind of coming regular, we were only shooting for 5. This is what we're doing. And then you would take me out into the rest of the gym and be like, all right, on this, because we need to work on this, this, and this, I want you to do sets of 12 here. Is that something that you found for, just more for the bench stuff? Do you use that? Do you mix in the two?
Yeah. So I look at different movements and how important they are in relation to my benching. And the program I have is on a week-by-week split. So 1 week is a lighter week and a lot of higher reps, and then another week is lower reps, a lot higher weight. But as an example, I'll do bent over rows. Bent over rows for me are never done in a high rep. That doesn't benefit me. I can simulate that movement in a different way to build my back to be bigger and more beneficial towards the benching versus doing sets of 20 with bent over rows. So typically with like that, I would do like a 5 or 8 rep scheme. However, when I hit like my rear delts, I'm always going above 12. It's 12 or more, 12 to 20. And something really important to point out, if you're deciding to do high rep stuff, it doesn't just mean, if you're going to do like 5 sets of 12 or 15, 20, whatever, don't pick a weight that you just breeze through, right? The idea isn't just to get the high reps in because you're growing. That, like, whatever the goal is, if it's 12 or 20 reps, you should be very close to failing when you get to that spot. So it still has to be relatively challenging. It can't be, well, I'm going to do push downs, I'm going to just breeze through this.
Sure.
You still might get a burn because you're doing the movement, but this should be to the spot where, you're going to throw up if you do this for an hour.
Yeah. And that's a good point to touch on, because all these different rep ranges aside, and a lot of times when I write programs, I'll give a rep range, but I don't prescribe the weight. And the goal with that is if you're working, like Adrian was saying, if you're working in the 10 to 12 rep range, you shouldn't be able to get 13. Maybe 13 on the first set, but then, 2-3 more sets of that, you're barely getting that 8. So it has to actually be sufficiently challenging regardless of whatever the rep range is. If you're like, oh, okay, 7, 8, 9, and 10, I'm done, you wasted the set. It's a waste of time.
So now we've been talking about the work, the fitness, the lifting that we're going to do to get bigger. How does the diet get involved in there between doing your 2 different types of hypertrophy? How is that going to affect it? Does it if I'm doing high reps and I want to go for fitness for tonnage, because I'm doing high reps, am I able to be more lax on my diet?
No.
No.
So you want to pair your nutrition to your training, right? But with your lifting, the type of lifting that you're doing and the rep range that you're doing it in does not necessarily dictate what kind of changes you're going to have in your body composition, right? So you can't do crunches to lose fat off your stomach. Doing triceps isn't going to, tone this. It doesn't work that way.
Can't spot reduce fat.
You can't spot reduce fat. But you can't also be like, okay, well, since I'm doing, high reps, I need to eat for this. We want to look at whatever your goal is with changing your body composition. with that, there's usually, I kind of explain it as like a hierarchy of needs, right? So if our goal is to gain weight, then you need to be in a surplus of calories, right? You need to be eating more than you are putting out energy-wise. So if you're building a house, you need to have enough materials to build the house. If you don't have enough materials, you're not going to build, the second floor before the first floor is built. And so if you're trying to grow, you have to be eating enough to grow. If you don't know what you're eating, you should track it so you can judge effectively how effective what you're doing is. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to drop weight or body fat or whatever, we need to at least be in some form of a deficit. And so accounting for your total number of calories is the most important thing that you can do. It's not the only thing. And for a lot of years it was all about calorie counting. Yes, that is true, but it is at least the most important because it's all going to come down to numbers. If you're not eating enough to grow, you're not going to grow regardless of how intense your training is. And this is kind of the biggest thing for maybe women to take into consideration that are scared to get into powerlifting and strength sports, is if you're not eating cake, then you're not going to put on a whole bunch of weight just because you do a couple sets of squats. Once we've covered... It's true. This is like my life's mission to get someone to believe me on this. If you eat donuts and cake, you will put on weight. If you do squats, you will not put on weight unless you pair it with donuts and cake. Okay? Squats and cake, big. Squats, no cake, small. Done. But once you've accounted for the calories, right, then we want to look at your macronutrients. So you've got proteins, you've got carbs, you've got fats. We need enough protein to sustain your recovery from the training that you're doing. You don't need to be eating, 500 grams of protein. Shoot for about 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. Over and above that, there's not a whole lot of research or anything showing that you're going to get additional benefit by, smashing down 5 pounds of meat a day. Mm-hmm. If you are naturally fat, like I am, and you're in a calorie deficit and you're trying to, drop some body fat, yeah, then maybe being a little higher on the protein will help just from the perspective of keeping you full. Plus protein has a higher thermic effect. So calorie for calorie, it takes more energy to break down protein than it does carbs and fat. That's neither here nor there. For the average person, 0.8 to 1.2. You account for that, you've got wiggle room between your carbs and your fats as far as what you want to do with the rest of those calories. Go based on what you prefer. Carbs are going to fuel your training. Fats are going to sustain hormones. Play around with that. Sure. There's different ways to optimize it, but that's less important than getting the calories in, right? So get your calories, account for your protein, enough fat to keep your hormones healthy, the rest for carbs to fuel your training. If you do those two things, you can get the first 80+% of any goal accounted for. That's about as complicated as it needs to be. You can also look at like your meal frequency, you can look at the quality of your food, you can look at supplementation, but there's no point in paying attention to the things that are going to be like your last 15% if you haven't done these other two things.
Mm-hmm. That's what, listening, it sounds like, because a lot when people start, everyone wants to they want to have knowledge, they want to know what they're doing. But it almost sounds like that as a beginning lifter, sometimes some of this knowledge might be, detrimental to you in ways of the, worrying that if I'm going to lift, I'm only going to get big, and I don't want that. But not paying attention that really your diet can control a lot of that as well. And then the supplements. And Adrian, I wanted to ask you about that a little bit. I remember, again, watching you grow as a lifter. There became more and more things would get added in. I just remember one of the little ones I'll never forget, and I don't know why, but I remember thinking it was hilarious to watch you take vitamin E and rub it on your arm because you had stretch marks from your arm getting so big. Mm-hmm. And I just remember little things, and I remember asking, why do you do that? Because this is what you have to do. Your body needs help to grow, to hit a certain point. How have you found, as you go along, what are some of the stages that you hit? Obviously that was a stage that you had been lifting for a really long time. But you weren't doing that when you first started. As you went along, what were your stages of focus kind of going through?
Well, I think when I first started, a lot of it was cosmetic. Looking at like stretch marks and stuff. People don't, when you're 16 years old and you look at your arm and it's full of stretch marks. Yeah. You look at that and go, I don't want to live like this for the next, 70 or 80 years. So you try to take care of that stuff then. But that was kind of the deal with me. When I first started training, I benched heavy, and then everything else was high reps, and so I got big really fast. But I was also eating, a ridiculous amount of food because my body was just reacting to everything I was doing. I wasn't really gaining weight. Or gaining fat, I should say. Everything I was eating, I was fueling my body. So I think some of that stuff in the beginning was like a cosmetic approach, just being concerned about being older and things looking a certain way. As I get older, you know, now, I mean, I don't care. I don't care if there's stretch marks. I really don't care. I mean, I don't care how big or how small I get. It's more of my goals as far as being a lifter. I don't want to look like a bag of smashed out, you know, assholes like some of the lifters, but you know, I mean, I want to look like I work out, right? I want people to look at me and go, "Man, you're big." But the overall how I look isn't as important as how well I perform. And something to touch on with what you were talking about with your dieting, it's important that people understand you don't want to run like a high protein, high carb, high fat diet. So it's always good, in my opinion, to run a high protein diet, but then the carbs and the fats have to offset each other. So it's either a high carb and low fat, or it's high fat and low carb.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can't be both, and I think sometimes people run into the problem of they don't really understand some of that stuff, and they just think just eat, and eat.
Yeah.
And that isn't the best. I mean, you want to, maybe if you're 130 pounds and you want to get to 200, that would be the case.
Yeah, you
but
just eat everything.
you got to be careful with what you're putting in your body also.
Does that adjust with age as well too? Only because you know, in high school, and you got guys who are linemen and they want to get them bigger, they tell them to go to McDonald's. There was a kid, I can't remember if it was a kid at my school or one of the other schools that I had talked to, and that's what his coach told him. He goes, "Oh, you just go to McDonald's every day after school. You get yourself 3 Big Macs, you eat them, you go home and you eat dinner." You know, that doesn't seem like that would be the proper way to go. Maybe because I was
to be diabetic,
maybe.
Right. That's the funny thing, you know, when I was in high school, I lifted 3 days a week at school, and I would plan it so that my lifting was right before lunch. Lunch, I would jump in my car, run down to Burger King, order 2 big Whoppers and a large milkshake, and I'd eat that 3 days a week. I probably gained, I mean, obviously I gained weight, but I still stayed pretty lean. Yeah, and then I'd go home that night and I'd eat 2 boxes of macaroni and cheese and, you know, whatever, a gallon of chocolate milk, and it never affected me. As you get older, it absolutely changes.
Oh, yeah.
All of
I'll shit myself for 3 days if I do that.
you know, your training and recovery is different. Everything, your diet's going to be different than when it was when you were younger. It's just your HGH levels are much elevated when you're younger, so it's easier to build muscle and stay lean. Your testosterone levels are obviously higher. So as you get older, all those things decrease, and it makes everything twice as hard.
I think getting older it works kind of similarly to having trained for a longer period of time, which is where you see people needing to start going up the pyramid with the things that they pay attention to. Because when I was, 19, 20 years old, and I was lifting 6 days a week, just basically I'm going to go in and just kill this today, and I'm going to kill that. And then sometimes I just wouldn't take a day off, and I'd keep going. But I didn't need to know what a foam roller was.
Right.
I didn't need to worry about mobility and recovery. I didn't have to, plan my training around what I know my elbows can tolerate. Like, I have my whole training week based on what I know are my, this is going to get fucked up if I don't do it intelligently, to where, I have the rest of this whole year of training already written out, and it's planned around, I have to do this on this day because I need this many days of recovery. If I don't get this, I may as well scrap that day altogether. And I didn't have to pay that much attention to it when I was younger. When I was first trying to put on size, I went and asked the biggest guy that I knew what to do. He's like, "Oh, you need 6,000 calories, 400 grams of protein, 300 grams of fat, 600 grams of carbs." So I would go and I got these gainer shakes, and I'd blend them up with add peanut butter and add
Weight
dextrose. And I blended so much shit into those things, and I drank 2 of them a day. And I throw them up half the time because each one was 1,800 calories. But I was like, I'm going to get so huge. He said eat 6,000. I'm going to eat 7,000.
Show them up. All right, well, we're starting to wind down on the topic. I had this great question that popped in my head to end it with, and it literally just floated
Welcome
right
to
out
life.
of my dome.
It's not good.
No, that was bad.
Probably also didn't happen when you were younger.
Well, I wasn't smart enough to come up with questions then. So we'll end on that topic there. I appreciate that. One thing I do want to say to people who are watching is when you guys do, listen, you can listen to us, but again, he's not a doctor, even though I do get to call him the MD. So you do got to do your own research, and then
Thank you for keeping me from getting sued.
Right. Adrian had said this before when we talked about trainers. When you do read on the internet, like I said, you'll find tons of different things. Ask yourself why. As you're going through this, why does this person say this? Or, where are they coming from compared to this other person that I'd read? Where are they coming from? Because you will find varying stories of people who are bodybuilders, people who are powerlifters, and then just jackasses who think that they can write about fitness because they read a book, but they don't actually go to the gym. So always remember, when you are researching these things and trying to learn, obviously figure out who you're listening to, what you're listening to, but do ask why. Very important. You can find out more in just that one question than you could reading for an hour.
I think one other thing that I do want to add is I think one of the most important things that you can do with doing your own research, because I've learned most of what I've learned from reading, from testing, and from doing. But the best piece of advice I can give is when you're reading through things, don't look for the differences, look for the similarities.
There you go.
Because everybody's trying to market things to people based on the one thing that's marginally different, right?
P90X.
Yeah, P90X, because your muscles need to be confused. That makes sense, because we learn things by getting confused, right? You've got paleo, which is saying everything needs to be organic or you're going to get fat and nobody's going to love you. You've got, ketogenic, which means you can't have any carbs or you're going to get fat, no one's going to love you. You've got the zone, where if you're not 60-40-40, you're going to get fat, nobody's going to love you. You've got intermittent fasting, which means if you don't eat all of your meals in, 4 to 6 hours, you're going to get fat, nobody's going to love you.
Yeah, the Delta Project.
And all of these things are being marketed on that last 5% that doesn't make a difference, that's slightly different and sounds different than what everybody else is saying. If you can look at all of that information and start to draw the conclusions over what underlying themes are making all of those things work, then you're going to get to the root 5 things that you need to do.
The true facts.
Yeah. Or at least the best that we know them to be, right? If we know that over time you need to do more work, cool. That's most of the training programs, right? Over time, you need to lift a little bit heavier than you were lifting last month and last year. That's, the basis of every program. With your nutrition, if you need to lose weight, eat less than you're putting out. If you want to gain weight, eat more than you're putting out. Right? Those basic principles will get you really, really far. And if you find those things and you stick to those, instead of getting confused and distracted by all of this other noise that's being put out there, then you're going to get a lot further than everyone else.
Sure. Jaron, are you afraid if you get fat, nobody will love you?
No, I'm already fat.
Just the way that you said that last
time.
No,
that's called marriage. I bought in when I wasn't fat.
The next time you say that, you have to say it in an Eeyore voice.
Nobody's gonna love me. No point in lifting it up. I'm just gonna have to set it down again.
Go eat worms.
All right, so Adrian, do we have any competitions coming up that we need to talk about? We need to mention real fast. I know Reebok's got the one.
Record
breaker meet. We get $1,500 if you break a record. I think that's stellar right there.
Good deal.
And that's in November. Was it the 7th? I think. Don't quote me on the date, but no, it's in November. Do you got anything else coming up?
We've got. I haven't released all the information for it yet, but we've got the deadlifts for Dornbecker charity meet. That'll be the 2nd week of December. I want to say the 11th. 7 and 5 is 12, right? 12th. I think it's the 12th. I'll put the details up soon. This is about how organized I am with that.
Charity event.
We did that last year. Yeah,
awesome.
It's a charity event for Dornbecker Children's Hospital. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently than we did last year. Working with the people over at Dornbecker right now to set up kind of sponsorship portals, so that way, in addition to signing up and participating in the meet, all the lifters can actually start to fundraise and get sponsorships for themselves or on behalf of themselves from their friends and family. So we'll be competing not just for the lift, but also who's able to generate the most money.
Sure, that's great.
So that'll be really fun. We had a lot of good vendors out. We had food and drinks and everything. So that'll be a good time. Last time we had over 100 people here, so
nice.
it was a blast.
And then, Adrian, you got the Larson Press meet coming up.
Yeah, there's a January 2nd. There's a competition up in Everett at Ego Gym. It's a push-pull.
Push-pull, yeah.
They're super good guys up there, so I'd encourage anybody to go up there and do the push-pull and just help them out. It's going to be their first competition, and the owner up there, super good guy. He's got a good crew there, so I'll probably go up there and help out. And then the following weekend, will be the skip leg day bench press competition.
Nice. That'll be a good time. All right, you guys got any plugs you got to throw out? As I ask the question, I'm gonna cut you guys off. Everybody, make sure I got a new segment that I just threw up on Facebook, Skip Leg Day movie review, where I skip leg day and watch a movie instead. Tell you all about it.
It should be called Skip Body Day.
Right, I was gonna say at some point I'll come up with a skip everything
lifting
else day.
Skip lifting day. I like that.
I did this week. I got in 3 workouts so far, and it's only Thursday. That's not bad. Well, for me, that's very good.
But his week started last Tuesday.
Well, yeah, the first day.
I don't use calendar weeks. I use pay period weeks.
Right. My knee swelled up a little big, so then that slowed everything down. But, I'm trying. I'm getting back into it. So check that out. Make sure you guys go to chalktalk.tv. Check out the website so you can see the podcast there. If you're not already listening to it on iTunes, you're going to have subscribed on there, or on YouTube and subscribed on there, of course.
You talk about working out, like this guy kind of challenged me to see how long it would take me to do 100 push-ups. What would you think?
For you?
Yeah.
Like
100.
A minute or two.
How, like time-wise, how much it would take you to
Yeah,
do?
so this guy did it in 2:41, if I remember correctly. And I thought that was a pretty good time.
Mm-hmm.
So he had asked me to time myself doing it.
Sure.
What would you guess?
I mean, if you thought 240 was a good time, then I'm going to go with 4 minutes. Was that ridiculous? I don't know.
Yeah.
Who it is. I don't know who
That
it is
sucks.
that gets telling me says that.
Wow.
Time. I'm looking at it. If it took me, if I was doing it, it'd be like an hour to 2 hours.
Sure.
So I know you're saying 240, but at the same time, that just seems ridiculous to me.
I did it in 52 seconds.
Shut the fuck.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was fucking flying.
Holy cow.
I was flying. So the next question after I told him, he said, well, were they like, you lock them out? Did you like touch the ground? Like,
Right, 'cause it's
listen,
easy to
man,
check for a minute.
I was cruising, so I don't know. I mean, my eyes, actually, it was making me sick. I was going so fast, I had to close my eyes.
Holy cow. 52 seconds is ridiculous.
Yeah, so me, Jeff, and another guy did it, and Jeff and this other guy did it in like a minute and a half, or just under. And
I don't think 250, whatever, is really that great.
no,
I suck at
felt
push-ups.
I
I could do it in 2 minutes, I
think
think.
I usually only do 70 and then rest and then do 30. And this one I obviously just blew right through them.
I've gone 80 is my highest straight through, but I hate push-ups. I don't ever do them.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. And this is after, so I go in on Monday to teach a powerlifting class, and in between each person's set, I decide I'm going to do 5 pull-ups. So as they're loading the bar for the next guy, I'm cranking out 5 pull-ups. I coach them, go crank out more 5. So I was fried. And I
then you did.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'll just do the push-ups, see what happens.
All right, we gotta look and see what the world record is for that, and then we gotta call Guinness.
Well, now I gotta fucking make sure I touch and lock it out, and
Yeah, but even if you
Imagine
did
getting
what,
red
like
lighted for
8,
push-ups?
9 seconds
Yeah.
to it to make sure.
and I did try Jeff's sledgehammer push-up.
Oh yeah,
That's not that hard.
not that bad.
No, I can do a bunch of those.
I might try it today.
Balance is a little difficult, but it's way easier than you would have thought.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll have to get a day where all of us come in and try that out, and then now I'm curious. I wonder how long it would actually take me to do 100 push-ups.
You can do your slingshot
I mean,
stretch.
There we go. I don't know why you were shocked that I did that.
I'm working it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Felt good.
Whoa, guys, I'm learning the secrets. This must be that unlocked hidden muscle from Facebook.
This is what The Rock's been doing the whole time.
Thought Justin Bieber made his transformation in just 3 months. This must be that legal new steroid alternative I keep reading about.
Jeez, how come everybody else isn't doing that?
Doctors hate him.
All right. Well, that's our episode for today. We don't have a video. We don't have any questions this week. I'm not going to lie. I looked for a video, and not a lot of good ones out there compared to what we've already done on some of those. So I'm going to keep hunting and see if we can find...
I'll screw something up soon and we can make fun of me again.
Switch it up to people that do something that's really cool.
That's what I was thinking. I think the next one is we're going to have to start going to the good ones too.
Positive.
This guy sent me a video, paralyzed from the waist down, and he just benched 255.
Dang,
nice.
That's pretty crazy.
I saw actually a couple cool things. I saw somebody squat at a meet, and I think it was a guy. They rolled him up in a wheelchair. He couldn't walk, but they rolled him up. He squatted like 100 pounds.
Jeez.
His knees and stuff came together. Who cares? But
right.
and then after he racked it, they put him right back in his chair and wheeled him off. I was like, that's awesome.
There's a guy that just benched 135 with one arm.
Oh, I saw that one. Yeah.
How the hell do you do
That
that?
is crazy. Oh, look at that. We're growing as a
I couldn't
podcast.
do that.
We're gonna
do positive things
now. All right, we'll make sure
you're both looking really slim today.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's why do I even lift shirt? Do you even lift shirt?
You look like you do.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll catch you next week. Adrian?
It's all good.
Thank you.